In 1993, at that time, Congressman Minetto was our keynote speaker for this event. It was my first year as chairman of this event, following my father's passing in 1992, and I will always remember the honor of him joining us here. Since 2021, we have added to our list to honor, in Section 25, U.S. Army Colonel Jimmy Kanaya. Later in our program, there's a special tribute to the Colonel. We are very fortunate to have as our guest today, Colonel Kanaya's wife, Lynn, and his granddaughter, Lily Wright, who came from Portland, Oregon, and Seattle, Washington. Thank you very much for coming. In Section 7, U.S. Army Colonel George Nakamura and his wife, Sylvia. This is a special one. He was my Uncle George because he married my dad's sister-in-law, so it's a special one that Uncle George is here. In Section 60, U.S. Army Staff Sergeant Matthew David Suzuki. In Section 68, U.S. Army First Class George Shimizu and his wife Helena. And U.S. Army Sergeant Tadashi Nakamura. In the columbarium, Niche 5, U.S. Army Sergeant First Class Luther Nakamura. Also in the columbarium, Niche 8, Robert K. Yoshida and Robert K. Yoshida II, U.S. Navy and U.S. Army, respectively. We are fortunate to renew our student speaker portion of the program from the Spark M. Matsunaga Elementary School this year. We have been doing this since 2012 and are happy to start back up again due to the break in COVID-19. We also have the principal of the school with us today, Mr. James Sweeney. We'd like to welcome him and thank him for his and his students' continued support to our program over the many years. We also are very happy to have from the Japanese Embassy, Minister of Management and Coordination, Koichi Ai, Congressional Affairs Minister, Tomoaki Shikigawa, First Secretary, Ms. Fumiho Suzawa. Welcome. We are fortunate and appreciative to be here today. Please let me introduce the speakers and the leaders of our sponsoring groups to welcome us. First, Linda Sato Adams, Co-President of JACL DC Chapter.
Hi, welcome to all of you who joined us today, and especially to the veterans, their spouses, and family members. We thank you for your service. This Memorial Day has been held for 74 consecutive years, the longest running program in Arlington National Cemetery. We'd like to thank the Kobayashi family and their father, Kei Kobayashi, for beginning this tradition in 1948, just 3 years after the end of World War II. This year, our theme is Defending Our Freedoms in Adversity. It's a poignant one as we consider the adversity we're being faced with today. There's racism, responsible gun laws, women's rights, and the war in Ukraine, just to name a few. In 1941, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt described 4 American ideals he wished to extend to the world: freedom of speech, freedom of worship, freedom from want, and freedom from fear. With this, he shared the foundations for a healthy and strong democracy, and among them were equity of opportunity for youth and others, security for those who need it, jobs for those who can work, ending of special privileges for the few, and the preservation of civil liberties for all. Now, Roosevelt believed that those 4 freedoms were attainable within his own lifetime or within his generation. And yet on this year, on the 80th anniversary of Executive Order 9066, which he signed and brought about the incarceration of 120,000 people of Japanese descent, we're still falling short of those ideals. That was an insecure time back in World War II, a global war that had begun in 1939, and there was a lot to fear. Fear led to the incarceration during World War II with no due process to those of Japanese descent in America. And yet, despite the adversity against them, approximately 33,000 Japanese Americans served in the military during or shortly after that time. Those Niseis believed in those American ideals, and they went on to become the most decorated unit for its size and length of service in U.S. history. But our freedoms come with a cost, and they require sacrifice, responsibility, maintenance, and defense. Freedom is not a given. We must be careful not to let our freedoms get lost, be taken for granted, or choose to give them away. This past week has been a tragic one, but I still have hope. Do we want to give in to fear? No, we do not. Must we do more to safeguard our freedoms? Yes, we do. I see our students as our hope. I see them standing up for their beliefs, and I see them adding their voice in order to create a positive change. We must ensure a well-rounded education so that they are well-informed and that the wrongful actions that have taken place in the past are not repeated in the future. We hope our students learn from and overcome the current adversities that they face so that they can truly cherish and value our freedoms in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Now I'd like to introduce Gerald Yamada, President of the Japanese American Veterans Association.
Thank you, Turner. On behalf of the Japanese American Veterans Association, I welcome you to the 74th Annual Memorial Day service at Arlington National Cemetery. JAVA is again proud to co-sponsor this service. We thank the Key Kobayashi family for organizing this event again. Today, we honor the soldiers who died while serving our country. For our community, we honor the 800 Nisei soldiers who died during World War II. They served at a very difficult time in our history. Their loyalty was distrusted based solely on their ethnicity. Yet they answered the call to serve to show that they were loyal Americans and still had faith in America. They truly died defending our freedoms in adversity. The sacrifice of those 800, together with the service of the 33,000 Nisei men and women who served in World War II, did make a difference for our community. Their patriotism and personal courage forged a lasting legacy that has benefited all of us. Their legacy enabled these historic events. Japanese immigrants were allowed to become naturalized citizens. Executive Order 9066 was revoked and repudiated. The Redress Commission concluded that Executive Order 9066 was motivated by prejudice, war hysteria, and the lack of political leadership. Those whose lives were disrupted by Executive Order 9066 received a letter of apology from the President of the United States and a $20,000 request payment. The National Japanese American Memorial to Patriotism in World War II was built with the names of those Nisei soldiers killed during World War II inscribed on the memorial's granite walls. The Congressional Gold Medal was bestowed on them by a grateful nation, and the Gopher Broke Japanese American World War II rubber stamp was issued to honor their service. This annual Memorial Day service started in 1948 by the Washington, D.C. JCL chapter. It is a continuing tribute to attest that their service did make a difference. And we are here to affirm that we have benefited from their legacy. Nisei soldiers answered the call to serve as their way to fight for the rights and dignity of the Japanese American community. On this day and every day, let us embrace their legacy by keeping faith in America as our way to fight the ongoing war against prejudice, as the Nisei soldiers did during World War II. And in